Hi everyone, I'm Bob Jenkins and welcome to another show in our series Legends of the Brickyard. The decade of the 80s kicked off with two drivers scoring their third Indianapolis 500 victories. In 1980 it was Johnny Rutherford. The following year Bobby Unser joined his younger brother Al in that elite three-time winners club. Before the decade closed, Rick Mears had pulled off the hat trick as well, while Al Unser joined A.J. Foyt as the only four-time champion. During the 80s, Lady Luck also chose to smile in a different way on Tom Sneva. Long known as the Gas Man for his record-shattering qualification runs that broke both the 200 and 210 mile-an-hour barriers, Sneva finally shed his bridesmaid label and captured his first Indianapolis 500 title in 1983. Then in 1985, an ex-New York taxicab driver by the name of Danny Sullivan put his street savvy to good use in winning his first 500 crown in dramatic fashion over Mario Andretti. And just a year later, the True Sports team, with driver Bobby Rahal at the helm, scored an emotional win for owner Jim Truman, who died of cancer just 2 weeks after his team's victory. So how would the decade come to a close? Would a former champion rise to the top again and add to his growing legend? Or would a newcomer etch his name in the record books for the first time? Well, stay with us as we look back at the 1989 Indianapolis 500.
The 73rd running of the Indianapolis 500 is one that will go down in history as one of, if not the best, ever. Contrary to the modern standards of near record-setting lead changes and last-lap battles for the win, the race appeared rather lackluster from the statistics. Emerson Fittipaldi dominated the race, leading 158 of 200 laps. Second place, Unser Jr., didn't even finish the race on lap 198. And Raul Boesel, who was in third, was 6 laps down, an absolutely monumental gap to today's standards. So, you might ask, what ranks this race above the rest in my opinion? Let's start by looking at what took place before the cars even touched the track. After finishing second in 1988, Patrick Racing returned with Emerson Fittipaldi for a one-car effort. However, team owner Pat Patrick was preparing to retire at the season's end and put into motion a deal with Chip Ganassi, Penske Racing, and Marlboro. So here's how the deal would work. Chip Ganassi would become the co-owner in 1989 and would take over assets at the end of the season to form his own team in 1990. Roger Penske's side of the deal was he would supply Patrick with 2 PC-18 chassis to use in 89, and in return Roger would obtain Fittipaldi and sponsor Marlboro starting in 1990. Penske would also receive interim sponsorship from Marlboro to field Al Unser Sr. in a third car at the 500-mile races in 1989. So I guess you could say Roger Penske created his own enemy in Chip Ganassi. Coming into 89, Al Unser Jr., son of 4-time 500 champion Al Sr. and nephew of 3-time champion Bobby Unser, was ready to start his 7th 500. Prior to 89, Al Jr.'s best finish in the 500 was a 4th place in 87. Little Al's father and uncle had won in their 6th tries respectively, so the pressure was on to bring home another Borg Warner to the Unser family name. Also making headlines were the Andrettis, as Michael Andretti joined his father Mario at the Newman Haas racing team to become the first driver-son teammates in the race. After a repave over the summer of 1988, speeds were up at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This would lead to several unofficial track records during practice week. Intensity was ramping up during the first weekend of qualifying, where the first day would be rained out, but that would just make tensions even higher for Sunday. Per USAC rules at the time, the cars would be allowed one trip through the qualifying draw order, and the pole round would be over. Al Unser Sr. drew first in line and, amazingly enough, set a track record on all 4 laps, putting himself on provisional pole to start the day. Only in 1 hour, several cars such as Scott Brayton, Bobby Rahal, Bernard Jourdain, Teo Fabi, A.J. Foyt, Michael Andretti, and rookie Scott Pruitt had completed runs. But the next car out, however, was undoubtedly the favorite to win the pole. Unsurprisingly, Mears set a single-lap track record of 224.254 miles per hour and a 4-lap record of 223.885 miles per hour. Rick Mears becomes the only driver to win 5 pole positions at the Speedway. By the end of Day 3, the field would be filled to 31 cars. On Day 4, better known as Bump Day, all attention would be focused on the 3-time champion Johnny Rutherford, who was the biggest name to not yet qualify. Once the field was set to 33, Rutherford found himself on the bubble. He would survive 3 attempts and clung onto a bubble spot nervously over the next hour. During that time, he would work out a deal with Foyt to step into a backup car if necessary. With 15 minutes left, Rich Volger would bump Rutherford out of the field. Rutherford scrambled to get back in line and made it to the front with 2 minutes left. His warm-up lap was on pace to be fast enough to make it, but just after he took the green flag, the engine blew, going into turn 1. At the time, this was only the second time Rutherford would fail to make the field.
Today, May 28, 1989, it's the greatest spectacle in racing, the 73rd running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Well, race fans began lining up last night outside this, the world's largest stadium. At 5 o'clock this morning, the aerial bombs went off and the gates were thrown open under a clear, crisp blue Indiana sky. A nice brisk breeze blows across the grounds, and the fans are now streaming into their seats. It's expected that by the time the green flag waves, there will be nearly 500,000 people here to view the Indianapolis 500. Hello, I'm Paul Page, and it's just 7:47 minutes away now until the start of the engines. And we're standing right on the main straightaway where it's just electric with excitement here as people prepare for the 500-mile race. Fans, crews, crowds, everyone here ready for the 73rd running.
By the start of the race, Emerson Fittipaldi showed his strength early by taking the lead into turn 1 and making a sizable gap. Not long after, however, trouble would ensue as Kevin Cogan suffered a massive shunt into the inside pit wall. Amazingly enough, he would walk away unhurt. From that point on, though, Emerson Fittipaldi would dominate the first 400 miles. During this time, top contenders Bobby Rahal, Jim Crawford, and Arie Luyendyk all suffered mechanical issues, and Mario Andretti would suffer from an electrical issue. Around 50 to go, Michael Andretti, who had worked the entire race from row 7, set his sights on Fittipaldi and took the lead away to have his engine expire just laps later. Meanwhile, Al Unser Jr., who went a lap down early in the race, found himself in second place. After a caution with 19 to go, Fittipaldi pit, while Unser gambled and stayed out, which put himself only 1 car behind Fittipaldi, setting up the duel for the ages. The battle was on. By lap 193, Unser was directly behind Fittipaldi. Despite the possibility of being short, the light fuel load would give Unser an advantage on the straights. Unser made his pass for the lead on lap 196 and started to pull away. The race was his to lose. Coming to 2 to go, Unser approached a train of lap cars which slowed him down dramatically. Out of 2, Fittipaldi was right on the gearbox of Unser. As Fittipaldi made his move, Al Jr., not giving up, made the bold move to make it 3 wide for the lead. It was a drag race to turn 3, neither driver going to back out. It was do or die.
Oh, they touch! Little Al into the wall! Fittipaldi continues on! Little Al slams the wall as Emerson Fittipaldi screams toward the white flag. The yellow flag comes out. Al Unser Jr. taps with Emerson Fittipaldi. They are on the main stretch.
To me, this is the greatest moment in 500 history. You have a double world champion facing off against a rising star of the sport for their first Indianapolis 500. After the wreck, you'd expect Unser to be mad, right? Initially he was, but according to Al, he rushed to give Fittipaldi a salute, we might say. He realized where he was. Emerson just won his first Indy 500. Nothing was going to change that. Instead, he gave Emerson an angry thumbs up. Just to add some context, here's a clip of my friend's dad, Ayrton Donahue, who was at the race in turn 3 to tell us what it was like to be there in person.
I remember we were sitting in what I believe at the time was Grandstand L, which was to become Northeast Vista. And we didn't have great seats, but they were okay. I remember that coming out of turn 2, which we could see up the backstretch, that that Emerson kind of ran Little Al down into the grass, and they definitely were going at each other, and it was a point in time about 3/4 of the way down the backstretch when you realized neither was going to give up and they were going to go into the turn together. I remember seeing the puff of smoke of the cars meeting, if it was the tires against each other or the tire against the car, and you saw Little Al's car going backwards up towards the wall in what at that time was probably Grandstand K, which became North Vista, and you knew he had lost it, but you didn't know if Emerson had wrecked too. We couldn't see that part. But when they went in, it was almost like when they went into that short chute between 3 and 4, you knew they were so close together that something could happen. And then you kind of just lost sight of Little Al, and then the next thing you know, you see Little Al's car sliding up backwards into the north wall.
So that'll do it for this video. If you haven't seen the 1989 500 in its full, I fully suggest that you do so. So if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. Go check me out on Twitter and Instagram, my other socials, @RacingNationTV. And in the comments, I want to know, what is your favorite Indianapolis 500? And do you agree with me? Do you think that this is the greatest Indianapolis 500 ever? This has been Racing Nation TV, and I will see you in the next one.